in the Bible, we read that Moses brought the law. And Moses, okay, I'm not looking at it from the point of view of history, but looking at it from the point of view of the Bible. This is a guy that was born in Egypt. He actually was a lawbreaker in Egypt because he had broken one of the 42 negative confessions that he might have recited like many other Egyptians at the time. Yet he went to the mountain and God gave him the 10 commandments. So he is coming as the law, as the person who is bringing the law to the people now, as if it was new. Actually, there was nothing new in it. So what I'm trying to say here now is that, is it possible that this can be maybe this has symbolized how the West look at Africa, in that they came, they learned from Africa, they took what they wanted to take, they destroyed the rest, and what they took, they brought it back again as the original, but after they have modified it to suit their interest. Can it be something like that? Because when you were referring to constitution, commonality, the people, the law, we are not looking at the way that we usually describe Africa as uncivilized, as people who do not know what they were doing. This is a highly civilized society, people who understand law and order and the rest of it. So help me understand that.
Oh, exactly. So what's going on with that is they're trying to, it's psychological warfare that's happened. So they want us, right, as African people to believe that we don't come from anything, where we just have a static history, stagnant, and we're not civilized or all these things. So it's psychological warfare. And then on top of it, it's almost like projection because of their own history. But that's exactly what happened. And I think the Council of Nicaea is a good reference to look at as to how that happened, because the Council of Nicaea is when you have different religious leaders coming together, or people who studied different laws that came together to try to find commonality as to how they were going to change ancient texts like the Bible and the Quran and all of these different things, right? So the Torah, excuse me. So like these things definitely did happen, and they didn't want to accredit an African civilization, an ancient African civilization. But a lot of people like Plato, Socrates, all of these great intellectuals that European like to, boast themselves about, all studied in ancient Kemet. So that's where they learned from. And including, like you're referencing Moses, being in Kemet at the time, it would have been Kemet, he learned those things from the jurists that were there, the teachers that were there. And then all of a sudden, the same laws that he taught by were in the Bible, except for they're not negatives anymore. And so it's really interesting. And it's like there's 42, like in the laws of Ma'at, there's 42 negative confessions versus 10 commandments. Why is that? And the rest of the 32 commandments of the confessions, negative confessions in Ma'at, like they're very powerful. Like one of them is, I will not waste water. Wow. Look at the times that we're in where people, we need to be innovative as to how we can get communities water, creating boreholes, or there's droughts in California right now. You know what I mean? So you get to see how ahead of its time this ancient text was.
By taking this law away from the people, by taking, not just this law, by taking this history away from the people, making them appear as if they are ignorant, I think what the Europeans are doing and what they have done and they continue to do is to cut the African away from their history, to just make a blank space so that there is no connection. When you take electricity, you cut the wire that is connecting it from the source. The part that is remaining is useless because it cannot generate itself. The light needs to come from the generator. And the generator in this case is the history, is the source, because it tells you where your ancestors are coming from, what they have done, how they have done it, what is, history. I want to repeat again what Dr. Ben was saying, that history is not just facts and figure. It is deeper than that. Because the Europeans are not making mistake. They are not doing random thing by cutting Africans away from their history. They are doing it deliberately, calculatively. Why do you think they are doing all these ones?
Oh, for psychological control of the mind. Like once you're able to make someone believe that they don't come from anything or they're not anything, then you're able to control their direction. You're able to control their actions in life. Like if you're able to shape someone, it's funny that you asked this because I was just writing about this, but once you're able to control the psyche, you're able to control the ideas that they have, the imaginations they have about themselves or their community. You're able to change their trajectory if you take away their history, if you take away their culture, right? So it's almost like you're creating a zombie. You're creating a slave in a psychological way. So it's very deceptive, but it's very effective at the same time because they understand the power of the mind. And that's why a lot of times people go into psychology to learn how to, I mean, it can be about self-discovery too, but a lot of times it's about how to control, people and situations around you, right? So that's really what's going on. And you can see that very well, at least in America. Like I've lived in America for a long time, and I see how them changing the narrative of African people has shaped our minds. Like instead of some Black people in America view themselves as Black versus African, right? Like they very much so stand by that. And what does that do, right? What does that do to the mind? Well, first of all, Black isn't an ethnicity. No one's Black. Maybe if you go to Sudan, you may see someone as very, very dark that may appear Black, but they're very, very dark brown. No one's Black. What is Black, right? It's ignorant. It doesn't even make sense. But what they're doing is they're ascribing their labels and their titles onto us, and we're accepting it. And then we also try to make it into a positive. But my question is, why not go back to our roots as to who we are and what we actually come from? Some people aren't wanting to do that because they see African as a negative. They see what's happened to Africa, and that's because how they portrayed Africa as being. Like, I think that not until now people realize how rich Africa is because of the media, how media has portrayed Africa. And then even some people like to say that they're indigenous, but yeah, you can be indigenous and still be African, because guess what? Africans were traveling all around the world before anyone else. They were able to travel to the Americas and Asia and all these different places. And sometimes they stayed, but that doesn't make them less African, right? So it's really to control people's mind and to control them in a way that they can get the outcome that they're looking for, which is what they've done. So people are only choosing to stay within this white structure in order to be accepted by white society and live this illusion. That's metaverse, right? People want to live this illusion.
You were saying something like, we can go back to our root and try to understand who we are. And of course, you see, you are in a better position now because you were born in the United States. You grew up there. You understand the reality there. But right now, you are in Africa. You also see what is your ground. This is your mother continent, no? What I mean by that is that even in Africa, a lot of people are lost, even though they are on their land. They look like alien in their land because they have been subjected to this European indoctrination, which continuously go on there. What I'm thinking about now is that, don't we have the possibility to be able to free ourselves without rely on this indoctrination of the European system, especially looking at all the tools that are available today?
Absolutely. But something that I've thought about is the reason why we don't. And my theory of that is that now we've come to a time where, African people are scared to die. Like, they're scared of death. Like, it's almost because there's been an adoption of foreign religions that now all of a sudden African people fear death. But that's never been the case before. Like Kempa Vita, for example. Kempa Vita was basically nearly a martyr from the Congo, because she was someone that, had a vision, and she was telling the people during the time that the Portuguese were trying to conquer them that Jesus isn't white. She was talking of an African Messiah, like, no, he's dark skinned. And you know what they did? She was pregnant. They hung her and they burned her alive while she was pregnant. And she said before she died, she said, I'll come back. Right? She said, I'll come back, because African people had that sense of spirituality to know that we don't just die and then that's it. No, our spirit lingers on. Energy cannot be destroyed nor created. So it just lingers. It just recreates later. And then someone came up shortly after that, somewhere else, saying that she was a descendant of Kempavita or was Kempavita herself. It had remembered that history.